Greetings, Star Warrior.
Greetings, Star Warriors. I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, and how it was a flop, and also whether or not that flop was a victory for the boycott. And just as an aside there, I know there are plenty of you out there who will recognize my little nod to my good friend SC Reviews. So let me just say that first off, SC Reviews is quite relevant to this video, and perhaps one of the reasons why I'm making it. Now, I've been away from the Star Wars game for quite a while now, and I will probably discuss that in another video. It's just not for this video. I don't want to make it too long. Back in June, while I was away, it seems like another YouTuber named Dave Lee Down Under made a video about the flop that was Solo, a Star Wars story, and how the flop wasn't a victory for the boycott crowd. And I was alerted to his video by a listener who is clearly concerned about my well-being. Thank you for that very much. And that I was personally under attack and all that stuff. And, you know, I appreciate his concern for myself, but SC Reviews was not attacking me. In fact, the person in the video wasn't really attacking me, personally anyway. The person who made the video was Dave Lee Down Under, and he and SC Reviews both share similar, you know, accents. They don't sound all that much alike to me, but, you know, they both have the dark hair, you know, they both have the Australian accent. But Dave Lee Down Under did feature SC Reviews for a few minor seconds in his video. But when all is said and done on this point, I just want to clarify that SC Reviews and Dave Lee Down Under are not the same guy. So SC Reviews is a really good guy, fairly easy to get along with. I see no reason why into the future there should be any bad blood between the two of us. But on to Dave Lee Down Under's video. And boy, do I disagree with it.
The latest installment in the Star Wars franchise, Solo, a Star Wars story, has opened to the lowest opening weekend of any Disney Star Wars movie so far. I'm sure you're well aware of the numerous reasons a movie of this caliber can fail so spectacularly at the box office by now. There have been plenty of articles and videos published about this over the last week. I will go over some of the more liable reasons in this video, but there's one proposed reason for the movie's failure that I want to delve into more so than the rest. And that is the notion that a boycott of the movie and the greater Disney Star Wars franchise completely hijacked and derailed Solo from being successful. If you listen or have come across any of the Disney Star Wars haters on YouTube, or as they call themselves, truth channels, you may have heard of the said Solo/Disney Star Wars boycott. If you, however, don't pay much attention to this incredibly vocal minority of people getting their panties in a twist over a piece of cinematic fiction, let's quickly delve into it.
But before we delve into that, I'd just like to point out that as long as we're accusing people of getting their panties in a twist over a piece of cinematic fiction, we might want to be careful not to get our own panties in a twist over people who are getting their panties in a twist over a piece of cinematic fiction. I have a history with Dave Lee Down Under, and, you know, we kept it cordial in the past. He was a bit passive-aggressive back then, but he seems to get a little bit more so in this video. Anyway, let's go on.
The release of Star Wars The Last Jedi saw an incredibly polarizing response from Star Wars fans, splitting the fandom into a group of those who loved it and an incredibly vocal group of those who flat out hated it. While those who legitimately enjoyed the movie tried to move along with their life, content with another great, groundbreaking Star Wars chapter, those who hated it made it incredibly difficult for their voices to be heard. They tiraded against the movie and its supposed gender politics, labeling the series SJW Wars. They abused content creators and fellow fans who just wanted to share a positive opinion on the movie, and in a movement that echoed the treatment of George Lucas a decade earlier, they abused the filmmakers and cast of the movie. Rian Johnson, the movie's director, or as the haters would like to call him, Ruin Johnson. Well done, guys, that is very creative. He copped much scorn and even death threats. Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, was labelled a man-hater and maligned for her supposed overly feminist agenda for the franchise. By the way, guys, you do realise that The Force is Female is an advertising campaign for Nike to help women feel liberated in sport. It is not a socio-political movement by Kennedy or Lucasfilm to push the franchise towards a female audience. You know, it's not like Kennedy just went...
Okay, so are we really going to pretend that those are two mutually exclusive positions? Like Nike can't use it for strictly one reason, and Kathleen Kennedy used it not only to support Nike's agenda, but also to coincide with what she has been doing in her own movies. Let's not pretend that she's staying true to the vision that George Lucas had by wearing a shirt like that. He never, in almost 40 years of owning Star Wars, made any sort of move that would exclude an entire group of people.
But lo and behold, another fan overreaction without any research.
So, the Force is female. Get over it. That's right, get over it. No men allowed. Get the hell out, men. We don't want you. Even though you built this franchise, even though George Lucas said it was for fathers and sons, he didn't say mothers and daughters, he said fathers and sons.
By the way, guys, these t-shirts can be bought online through authorized Nike retailers. There's also a whole lot of other products in this range available through Nike themselves, if you'd like to go and support a great cause that I can fully get behind. Okay, so now where was I? Of course! The Solo boycott. Spawned directly from this immense hatred of the new direction of Star Wars came the Boycott SJW Wars / Boycott Solo movement. Yes, internet commentators called for boycotts, YouTube commentators expressed their desire to boycott, and some even made t-shirts available. I mean, t-shirts. Come on now. I see someone walking down the street in one of these, I would laugh my head off.
Yes, I have no doubt that you would. In my past dealings with you, it was abundantly clear that your biggest flaw was your inability to put yourself in the position of the people who you were talking against. And it seems that you haven't really fixed that flaw or done anything to fix it, to tell you the truth. You've pretty much gone backwards to some extent from what I can tell. I'll try at least one time to explain this in a way that you might be able to understand. The Rebel Alliance did not don their uniforms in order to impress Imperial agents. In fact, the response that they got from the Imperials is the kind of response that people who wear those shirts expect from people like you. Utter derision.
When the opening weekend numbers for Solo were revealed, like the ragtag group of rebels that they are, the Star Wars hater crowd was quick to claim this as a victory, with many proclaiming their boycott to be the sole reason behind the movie's miserable demise at the box office, completely ignoring all other reasonable explanations. Sounds pretty drastic, doesn't it? But look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and flat out deny that this boycott was the sole reason. Before I do, I'll give this my time of day and actually look into this one, do a little bit of research. For the sake of argument, let's do a little math and find out just how many people would have been required to boycott Solo to make it the sole reason behind its failure. To do this properly, we need to look at this movie on a global scale and weigh it up against the global takings of the movies which preceded it. The facts tell us that Solo opened to $84.4 million domestically and $63.1 million internationally across its 3-day opening weekend for a global taking of $147.5 million. The previous entry in the Star Wars storyline of spin-offs, Rogue One, in comparison opened to $155 million domestically and $135 million internationally across its 3-day opening weekend for a global taking of $290 million. So let's take these earnings and convert them into ticket numbers. Using the average price of $9 a ticket to see a movie at the cinemas over the last few years, we can estimate that Solo sold 16.4 million tickets, while Rogue One sold close to double that at 32.2 million tickets, a discrepancy of close to 16 million tickets. And not that it's all that fair, considering Solo was never going to do the same business as one of the main saga movies. Compare it with The Last Jedi just to keep everyone happy. The figures for The Last Jedi show us a $220 million domestic opening and a $230.8 million international opening for a grand total of $450.8 million globally. Again, using the $9 ticket average, we can estimate that The Last Jedi pulled in 50 million tickets on opening weekend, a discrepancy of 34 million tickets when compared to Solo. So, looking at these figures, for this boycott to have been the sole reason behind the failure of Solo, a Star Wars story, we're looking at a movement of between 16 to 34 million people flat out boycotting.
Everything he just said is completely irrelevant. Facts they may be, but they don't prove the point he thinks they're proving. I didn't really pay too much attention to Star Wars during the Solo theater stay, but I have a feeling that not that all that many boycotters were saying that the boycott was the only reason why that the movie failed. But even if there were people actually saying those things, welcome to reality, where people in every group, every culture, everything, any sort of separation you can think of will be wrong. There will be a minority of people in every group that are wrong. There are a minority of people in his group that are wrong about things they say. The title of his video says something about how the boycott failed, not how some people in the boycott said something that wasn't completely true. The real interesting thing about this is how the reasons he's going to offer up as to why the boycott was a failure is basically to adopt all of the people who were boycotting their own arguments and say that because their arguments were true, the boycott was a failure. Look at Stephanie Janisek's videos. She didn't like Han Solo. Okay, she didn't want to see that movie to begin with. Blah, blah, blah. Those are the reasons why he's going to say that the movie failed. Well, those are the reasons why so many people were boycotting.
I mean, yes, I'll agree. There's a decent number of those boycotting, but 16 to 34 million of them, I find this very, very hard to believe. Looking around YouTube, I am hard-pressed to find a boycott video that has more than a couple of 100,000 views, let alone millions or even 1 million. So where on earth did all these people come from? 16 to 34 million people just came out of thin air to boycott this movie without showing support across all the online rallies. I'm just gonna stop right here and call it Solo Boycott did not kill Solo alone. Let's be generous and maybe say 500,000 to 1 million boycotted the movie at most. There's a loss of only $4.5 to $9 million. Sure, a hefty sum for the average bloke, but not enough to make any kind of enormous difference in the long run for this movie. Certainly not enough to equate the discrepancy in takings between Solo, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi. At that, I'm not disputing that it had a part to play, it certainly did, but it's only one part of many factors. This boycott cannot be claimed as a victory because this boycott did not bring the movie tumbling down alone. Instead, it put a small dent in the takings of a movie that was dented for various differing reasons.
Okay, so the main problem I have with Dave Lee's statements are pretty much made clear in the title of his video. His definition of victory is very narrow. Like, if every word in the dictionary was defined with such a narrow definition, then half the stuff that people say or more would be completely incorrect, just in general terms. It's like saying, you know, if you're going to war with somebody and the other side loses more men and they run away, you didn't win because the weather was bad and it was against them. You know, it doesn't make any sense. It's just very similar to saying, well, the boycott didn't have everything to do with why Solo was a flop, so therefore it's not a victory for the boycotters that Solo flopped. As far as it being a victory for our side, the reasons for the victory are irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, what we wanted to happen happened, and that's the bottom line because I Live in Hyperspace said so.
This is a movie which Star Wars fans never asked for in the first place, and one which no one was really overly hyped about, including myself, let's be honest. It's a movie that had very limited marketing. TV spots and merchandise were released only weeks before, instead of months before movie opening like Last Jedi, Rogue One, and The Force Awakens. It's a movie which saw one of the most iconic characters in cinematic history portrayed by someone other than the actor who became synonymous with him 41 years ago. A movie which has no enormous consequences for the Star Wars saga overall. We've seen Han Solo's middle, we've seen Han Solo's end. Solo is a story of Han Solo's beginning, a story audiences have survived without for 41 years and can likely survive without a little bit longer.
All of which were reasons for why people boycotted the film, given months before the film came out. That being the case, I find that the argument lacks logic, just for the fact that the reasons for the boycott he's stating are the reasons why the boycott failed, despite the fact that the results the boycotters called for are the results the boycotters got. When you pour hundreds of millions of dollars into a movie and it flops, there's going to be a lot of reasons why it flops. It doesn't have to be one reason for it to be a victory of those who have the goal of making it flop. It doesn't have to be. It's still a victory for them. It doesn't matter how many boycotters there were. You know, it seems like there was enough that what he thinks that they were somehow able to keep the people who love that movie from being heard. As if I could go to his internet service provider, tell them to shut down his internet so that he can talk about The Last Jedi and how much he liked it. Absolutely no one is stopping the pro-The Last Jedi crowd from being heard. Any more than the pro-The Last Jedi crowd is stopping me from being heard. But under his definition of things, I could very well claim that. You know? That's the damnedest thing. I mean, I guess I'm something of a language Nazi, but it seems to me that people sort of, push words in certain directions so that they mean only what they need them to mean instead of what they actually mean. And then gross exaggerations start flying around the internet and people start taking them as fact. He's got a sizable crowd, at least compared to me, that listen to him. And after what he said, they're going to be going around repeating that, the boycotters are a vocal minority. Well, vocal minorities get things done all the time. Vocal minorities are what it takes to get a majority of people to go in one direction instead of another. That's the way it always is with any movement, with any sort of change. The vocal minority has to be there. Not everyone has the time or the desire to get up on YouTube and go off on a tangent about whatever, But there's always going to be a minority of people who do have the time, who do have the knowledge to do so and the drive to do so. The vocal minority always speaks for a crowd that is somewhat larger than them. And in this case, the anti-Disney Star Wars crowd is much bigger than the vocal part of it. You're not going to get a good projection of how big the anti-Disney Star Wars crowd is by looking at YouTube views. What makes Star Wars movies generally so successful is people that go and see the movie over and over and over and over again, and it's not just the hardcore Star Wars fans that do that. When a movie flops and it's a Star Wars movie, there was clearly a lot of people, whether they be hardcore fans or not, that did not get in line again, and you can't ignore that. I boycotted the movie. I did not go see it. In fact, I haven't seen a Disney movie since The Last Jedi. And I didn't see the latest Thor movie. I didn't see the latest Avengers movie. I didn't see whatever came out, since. I can't keep up these days. I didn't see Black Panther. I didn't see any of them. I don't plan to until things change. But it's great to be back with all you guys again. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and as always, if you're listening, you are the new rebellion.